Have you heard this saying before? People often overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. Now, this saying can be said for many different time frames, right? Overestimate what you can do in a week and underestimate what you can do in a year, in a day, in a month, whatever it may be. But the reality is, for most of us, and even the most seasoned, productive, efficient person out there, is sometimes it's difficult to figure out how long and how much work a goal or task or objective will actually take. If you're an avid listener of this show, then you're probably saying, wow, I have not seen an episode from this guy in almost 2 months. I guess he's done. Well, you would be wrong, my friend. Obviously, what I have alluded to in the last episode that I put out was a new part of Upgrade, a new revenue stream, a new project that I've been undertaking, which is starting in the youth speaking market. So essentially, this could look literally like an entirely second business. Right now, it is basically another leg of Upgrade My Rituals. But the reason why I'm telling you this is because the fact that it was a fairly good estimate from my mind of how long things would actually take. But what I did not do a good job of was I did not do the proper understanding of what would come from this new project. What would come from this new project is a pause on my content creation and a pause on this show. So I've been involved in entrepreneurial endeavors and businesses ever since about 2015. So we're going on 7 years now, almost 8 years now. And I have learned so much. I've learned so much about what it actually takes to either start something, to actually get something going. And I've also learned how long it takes me to do something. For instance, my first website took months and months and months. This page that I put up for the youth speaking took a week. Creating an email sequence back in 2016 took 6-7 weeks, and now it takes about 2 weeks. So while I am very efficient and very understanding about how long things will take, what I didn't do a good job in what I already explained was actually letting you as the listener know that something would happen as a result of this new endeavor. And that, of course, would be a pause on the content creation. But the good news is I'm back. Why does this actually matter to you? Where am I going with this? Well, what I like to do today is I like to do a couple things. One, I'd like to list through some activities and some exercises that you can do in order to really figure out how long something might take and what's really involved in either a goal or an objective that you have. And number two, I'd like to discuss and try to open your mind to the collateral damage that might happen by taking on a new project or task. So for me, on a microscopic level, I still have this problem. Every time I tell my wife, oh, I'll be about 10 minutes, in the beginning, I used to think it would actually take 10 minutes. And now, I still say 10 minutes, but I know it's probably going to be about 25. I could pretty much double the time it takes to do something on a small level. But on a larger level, knowing the pieces of the puzzle, I usually have a good idea of how long it'll take, whether it be 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, a year, 2 years, whatever it may be. So the first step to really figuring out whether you fall in the category that I fall in, and we kind of are underestimating how long things will take in the micro, one thing you can simply do is take a time audit. Like, figure out how long it actually takes to do the tasks that you don't even think about. So for me, if I have to clean my whole house on a Saturday, I think to myself that it'll only take an hour and a half, but oftentimes it takes a little bit over 2 hours. Now, moving forward, I kind of have that idea of, okay, it's going to be about 2 hours. And if I say it's going to be an hour and a half to somebody else, there's something happening there, right? It's because I feel guilty that they have to wait because I have to meet them somewhere, or I feel guilty that I'm not able to spend time with my family, whatever it may be. All that's actually doing is creating more tension when I'm 45 minutes late. So that's the first thing. We got to figure out a time audit. So look at whether it's cleaning your house, cooking dinner, doing the dishes, whether it's a specific project that you have for work or homework for school or whatever it may be. just don't even estimate anything right now. Just figure out how long it's actually taking. You could do this a myriad of ways. Take your phone out and hit the timer app that's always built into our phones and just start and finish that, and do that a couple of times with the same task. Because if you do it once and there's different conditions that change from the next time, then we may not have a good litmus test. You can do that. There are as many fancy tools out there. You can use the same exact type of way to track your time and just time it with something called Timeular, and I'll link to in the description below. But I've never used this tool, but it looks really, really cool. Basically, it's a timer, but with all different sides on this type of diamond cube-esque thing, and you can kind of flip it over to that particular side that you write on and say, hey, draw a little broom for cleaning, or a little email sign for work, or whatever it is. And that way you can kind of have everything timed with a flip of a device versus trying to set timers on your phone and having to interrupt it or whatever it may be. A second thing you can do is just simply double the time it takes. This is not a scientifically or even close to accurate way of doing things, but oftentimes, especially in the small amount of things, a minute can go by so quickly. And yet an hour can go by so slow, almost like an eternity. So basically, if we just, instead of doing a time audit, just double the time it takes and figure out, hey, how many times or am I actually accurate in my estimation of how long things will take? Now, if you say to yourself, there has been many times where I have been perfectly accurate about my estimation of how long something will take to complete, but it was just because I was super focused and dedicated to making that happen. Well, then it's a different story. It's not that you have a problem estimating how long something will take. You have a problem just simply being focused and attentive, which many of us do. I can't tell you how many times I've been cleaning my house and listening to podcasts and watching YouTube videos on the side, and then it takes 2.5 hours or so. But if we have to go somewhere and have a lot of weekend plans, I have to bang this out as fast as possible. So I know with that time constraint, I have to be focused. I'm not listening to anything, and magically, I clean my whole house in an hour and a half. Wouldn't you know it? So one simple way to be a little bit more effective and efficient of what you're actually doing is simply plan things out. If you don't have a planner, you pick one up. If you do use your phone or something else to plan your day, even on the days that you don't necessarily, say on the weekends, if you don't necessarily have some type of big chunk of a commitment, say a job or school, it's still a good idea to have a rough estimate of what you want to do, but more importantly, when you want to do it. If you tell yourself, okay, I have to clean the house, I'm going to go to the park with the kiddo, and I have to meal prep for the week. Those are 3 things. But you didn't tell yourself when you're going to do those 3 things, and you didn't tell yourself how long you're going to give yourself to do those 3 things. So then, this ultimate rule that often happens is that the task at hand takes the allotment of time that we give it. So if those 3 things are the only 3 things you have to do that day, that will take you all day. If those are the 3 things and you want to tell yourself that I plan on having 3 hours of free time, and that's planned and that's kind of strategically written in there, then magically those 3 hours will make themselves apparent. So now those are just a few ways to actually get the things that we want accomplished and the time it takes to become a little bit more apparent. And that ultimately will lead to a lot more, not only efficiency and productivity, but a lot more calm and clarity in our lives. But the second part of this equation, and using myself as an example of starting my youth speaking avenue of upgrade, what happens to the collateral damage? What will happen by taking on new projects or new things in your life? Well, ultimately, we only have 24 hours in a day. You and I both know this intellectually, but emotionally, we just say, oh yeah, I'm completely full to the brim, but if I just keep on taking things on, I promise something will happen, it'll all work out. And then of course something drops. We're juggling, one of the balls drop. And the worst is that when you know it's going to drop, in my case, but you don't do anything to actually make that happen, that's a bad thing and not a great recipe for continuity. So for instance, many of you watching this show and listening, you might be saying like, where's this guy been? And then I fall off your radar, and you kind of are not as connected to me as you were and connected to the show as you were, because I told you by my 94 episodes, I said I'll be here every week. You know that I'm here every week, and all of a sudden I go away for 6 weeks, and you say, oh, okay, well, that was rude, right? And of course that's my bad. I'm sorry, but my reasoning for that is just because I didn't even have a second. Well, of course I had a second, but I didn't choose to make your feelings on our connection through this show a priority. So again, I sincerely apologize, because that is the truth of it. My priority was getting everything up and running as fast as I can, because I am so excited about this. That will be another episode for another day, but I just became so passionate about starting this process, and before I even actually can step into schools and start speaking to kids, I needed to have a website, I needed to have demo video, I needed to have, be registered by our state for different things, I needed to be have some promotional material, some things that actually are in place. Now, there will be other additions to that, but at least I have those things now in place, and I can kind of move on. But the goal of what I'm telling you is to figure out what ball will drop. What is it that you are not going to be able to do in lieu of this new project and time commitment? What you need to do is figure out ultimately where that time will come from and what will drop, and then do whatever you can to make that as soft as a blow as possible. So for instance, if I can go back in time, I would simply say, okay, listen, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I very well may not be here for 4, 6, 8 weeks, but don't worry, I'm coming back and explain what was going on, but I didn't do that. So again, these are some of the things that in retrospect I'm learning throughout my process, and I hope you can too, but ultimately we are only human, so don't beat yourself up too much, and I won't beat myself up too much. So thank you so much for watching today, and if you're looking for a little bit more encouragement and a little bit more of an understanding to go easy on yourself, you can take a look at this video right over here.